The woman pushed the man off the tall building. She needed to ensure the man was dead, so she rushed downstairs with a knife. The woman started frantically stabbing the man's body. It turns out that as long as this man's brain isn't dead, he can't invade other people's minds. The woman is actually one of the victims. The woman's name is Lena. She is a female psychologist. Lena has a delicate face and figure. She has her own clinic, an ideal husband, and a comfortable middle-class life, until one day, she met a patient who changed her life's trajectory. Patient Rum knocked on her office door. Initially, Lena didn't want to treat him because he didn't have an appointment, but Rum claimed to be Lena's fan. He had read Lena's book about out-of-body experiences multiple times. Lena stated that it was a form of schizophrenia, but Rum didn't think so. He said that thoughts could leave one's own brain. Lena became a bit interested and let Rum in to start the official inquiry. Rum said he was very lonely. No one understood what he was talking about. Then Rum mentioned that his father's thoughts often invaded his mind, or his thoughts went into his father's mind. Rum also hoped Lena would accompany him home. Lena firmly declined. She thought Rum might suffer from severe schizophrenia, but Rum still revealed his address. At that moment, Rum became very nervous upon hearing the phone ring. He took the phone out of his bag. After getting through, Rum said he didn't want to talk anymore, and asked him not to call again. It was his father he was talking to. Then Rum started behaving strangely. After it ended, Rum seemed like a different person. The way he spoke, the way he carried himself, the way he sounded. He was someone else. Lena was stunned. Rum said he was sick. Lena asked Rum if he remembered what they had just said. Mr. Rum said he had no recollection of it. Lena said Rum had been talking about an out-of-body experience. Rum says not to believe what young people say. Lena was so interested in the case that she was willing to follow it up. She even left a note for Rum. Lena wrote her phone number on it. Rum took the note and said they would see each other again. Wait for Rum to leave. Lena's heart was already churning. She was already captivated by Rum's appearance and behavior. She brought her work home. She discussed this schizophrenia case with her husband Debbie at the dinner table. Derby could only listen passively and occasionally make jokes. At night, Lena often thought about Rum. Lena's heart was already in turmoil. After a few days, Lena went to find Rum. This old house hadn't been tended to for a long time. The glass door was covered in newspapers. She rang the doorbell, but there was no response. Lena casually turned the doorknob. She didn't expect the door to be unlocked, so she walked right in. Lena walked in and saw an old man. The old man was Rum's father, Pete. Lena approached. Pete kept mentioning about the pills in his pocket. Lena instantly understood and found the pills to feed Pete. Lena looked closely and found it was medicine for heart disease. Apparently, Pete suffered from a severe heart condition. Pete expressed gratitude to Lena. Lena was curious how Pete knew her. Pete said there were photos in the book Lena wrote, so he recognized it, but he also knew Lena would come back. Lena then asked where Rum had gone. Pete stated that his son, Rum, had disappeared the day before yesterday. They talked about Rum there. Pete smoked as he spoke. Pete mentioned he had a stroke and couldn't move easily, yet he was still smoking. Lena then noticed Pete was reading a very peculiar handwritten book. She asked Pete what book he was reading. Pete didn't give a direct response. Before leaving, she wanted Pete to call Rum. Pete got angry and took out a knife from the drawer to drive Lena away. Pete had a severe cough. Lena went to assist Pete. Inadvertently, Lena's hand got cut by the knife. Lena, frightened, quickly left the crazy old man. Afterward, Rum never visited her clinic. Lena gradually forgot about the incident. One day, as the couple prepared for bed, Lena, when she answered, found it was Rum on the phone. Rum mentioned that his home was a mess and didn't know whether to call the police. Lena said she would come over immediately to see. Then she said goodbye to her husband, saying she'd return soon. Lena arrived at the old house and found Pete lying on the floor. Lena immediately called 911 for help. At this moment, Rum suddenly appeared and snatched the phone away. Then he threw the phone out of the window. Simultaneously, he took out a knife from the drawer, threatening Lena. Under Lena's persuasion, Rum no longer persisted. Lena found the medicine from Rum. She immediately fed it to Pete's mouth, but Pete remained motionless. Lena confirmed Pete's death. However, Rum claimed that Pete's body was dead, but his mind wasn't. So Rum picked up the knife and expressed his excitement. That day at Lena's clinic was already the second time Pete's thoughts took over Rum's mind. If it happened a third time, it would be irreversible. Lena believed Rum's mental illness was beginning to affect him as he started to talk nonsense. Suddenly, Pete on the ground began severe physical contortions. Rum thought it was a precursor to Pete's mind leaving his body. He stepped forward, intending to subdue Pete, but it was too late. Pete grabbed Rum, uttering some kind of incantation. As a result, both of them began convulsing simultaneously. Pete and Rum's mind exchange had happened for the third time. Now they could no longer return to their own bodies. Later, Lena was continuously communicating with fake Rum. Actually, the one communicating with her was Pete's mind. Soon, fake Rum charmed Lena. While the two were kissing, Pete's mind entered Lena's mind for the first mind exchange. Peter now thinks it's great to be a woman. Lena's mind in Rum's body felt completely at a loss, but the first mind exchange was brief. Soon, after a spasm, the two changed back again. Lena later realized that out-of-body experiences were real and could be controlled. At this moment, fake Rum noticed that fake Pete was missing from the ground and began searching around. It was then that Lena remembered the handwritten book on the table and opened it to take a closer look. It was a typical grimoire. She couldn't understand it either. The eyes of the demon in the book were still shining. Lena was frightened and dropped the book on the ground. The sound of the book hitting the floor made Lena realize there was an empty space beneath the floor, so she pulled back the carpet. Sure enough, there was a small door. Below was a basement. At that moment, fake Pete appeared behind Lena, begging her to save him. Fake Pete was actually Rum. During their struggle, a nearby candle rolled and fell onto the curtains. The candle ignited the curtains. Meanwhile, fake Rum chased after them. He picked up a knife from the ground and killed fake Pete. Lena hurriedly ran out of the old house. She drove straight to her friend and psychiatrist, Ruby's, seeking help. She believed something was wrong with her mind. When Lena told about the out-of-body experience, Ruby thought Lena was just having hallucinations. For Lena's well-being, she advised her to take a break soon. Before parting, they made a gesture known only to them. Lena returned home. Two policemen were waiting for her at home. They returned the phone found at the scene to her. Then, the police roughly inquired about the situation at that time. Lena said there was just a fire, and nothing else happened. Rum testified to the police that Lena had left before the fire. Lena was not involved in this matter. Lena inquired about Pete's situation. The police stated that Pete wasn't found at the scene and had been reported missing a few days earlier. Lena breathed a sigh of relief. From then on, Lena often stayed at the clinic and returned home late. During this time, fake Rum deliberately burned himself. Then, Pete called Lena. Lena picked up the call, eager to know what happened to Pete that night. However, fake Rum refused to discuss Pete. Then, fake Rum began chanting a spell to swap minds with Lena. Since the last mind swap, Pete found pleasure being in Lena's mind, so he initiated another mind swap. Lena finds herself in Lum's head and still in the basement. She was extremely panicked and bewildered. Lena picked up the phone to ask Rum to switch back, but fake Rum hung up. Fake Lena was extremely excited. Looking at her face in front of the mirror, he felt he should have a female body. Fake Rum found a pill in the basement and realized it was Pete's medication. She immediately understood this was the small door in the basement she had found that day. Located beneath Pete's study, Lena, disguising her identity as a friend, called Ruby, asking her to come to the address she mentioned to rescue her. Ruby immediately arrived at the basement. She saw someone, but it wasn't Lena. Fake Rum explained the situation again, but Ruby didn't believe him. Fake Rum then disclosed the details of Lena and Ruby's relationship and made a gesture known only to the two of them. Now Ruby was inclined to believe. At that moment, fake Rum had a spasm, and fake Lena had one too, swapping their minds back again. When fake Rum, actually Pete's mind, returned, he was extremely surprised to find a stranger in the basement. He claimed he was playing a game and then kicked Ruby out. Ruby had some understanding moments ago but was now confused again. Meanwhile, during that period, Lena had been at home the whole time. Lena realized there had been an exchange of minds and immediately returned to the office to calm down. This issue was severe now. If it happened again, her mind might not return to her own body. At that moment, fake Rum showed up. Lena had realized that Rum's mind belonged to someone else, potentially Pete's. Fake Rum didn't deny it, but since Pete experienced being a woman, he thought being a woman was better than being a man. Tonight, He wanted to have a third mind swap and permanently possess Lena's body. They argued and a fight broke out. Lena stabbed Fakram first. During the struggle, Lena pushed Fakram out of the window. Lena was worried that Fakram wasn't dead, so she went down with a knife. She saw Rum still struggling and proceeded to repeatedly run him over with the car in reverse. Now Rum definitely won't survive, but Lena, still uneasy, stabbed multiple times with the knife. At that moment, the police arrived. They apprehended Lena as a mental patient. Then Lena became Ruby's patient and was kept in a mental hospital. Ruby, in the ward, listened to Lena's story again but still didn't entirely believe her. Simultaneously, Fakram's body was brought to the mental hospital for an autopsy. The doctor ate a sandwich while observing the body. At the same time, Fakram's brain was resurrected and began the ritual of thought exchange. Simultaneously, Lena experienced spasms, and synchronization began. After their minds swapped, Lena's mind entered Fakram's head. However, her survival instincts remained. Lena continued crawling on the ground, hoping for the doctor's help. The doctor got scared and ran away. On the other side, Pete's mind moved into Lena's head. He was surprised to find himself locked up. Ruby said a few more words to Lena. At that moment, the guard arrived to report. Ruby had no choice but to ask the strong caregivers to keep an eye on Lena. She went with the guard to check the situation. When she saw Fakram climbing out, she immediately realized Lena's mind was already in Rum's head. Ruby immediately asked the nurse to bring equipment to save Fakram. They administered several electric shocks, but it was futile. Ruby returned to the ward to instruct the nurses to carry the body. She clenched her fists, wanting to hold fake Lena accountable. They fought from inside to outside the house. The guard came with a gun. In fact, during their fight, they completed the second mind swap. Ruby's mind entered Lena's body. Ruby's body contained Pete's mind. Fake Ruby, actually Pete, ordered the guard to shoot fake Lena. Her reasoning was that this patient had gone completely insane. The guard hesitated. Fake Ruby, actually Pete, tried to grab the gun. Inadvertently, both of them tossed the gun away. Fake Lena, actually Ruby, picked it up. At this moment, she was also somewhat deranged. At this time, Rum's body on the hospital bed stretched out a hand. He made a gesture known only between best friends. Then, fake Lena aimed two shots at Rum's head. That's when Rum truly died. Lena's mind also vanished. Originally, Lena's mind couldn't return. Fake Lena, actually Ruby, did the right thing. Then, she aimed the gun at fake Ruby, actually Pete. Just then, their minds started swapping again. Ruby's mind returned to her own head. Pete's mind went back into Lena's head. Fake Lena shot and killed the guard. Then she prepared to shoot Ruby. At that moment, she ran out of bullets. Ruby rushed forward and grappled with fake Lena. Amidst their struggle, Pete recited an incantation. They completed the third swap. Pete's mind entered Ruby's head because he knew Lena's body would end up in jail or a mental hospital for life. That way, Pete's mind would live in Ruby's body. The movie concludes here. This movie has many twists. As long as the male lead's mind doesn't die, there's a chance to live in someone else's body. The heroine cheated on her because she couldn't resist the temptation of a young man. What's even more interesting is the peculiar fetish of the male lead. He made a deal with a demon and killed his own son for immortality. So, which is more important between a person's body and mind? I believe the mind is crucial. The mind, like the soul, is irreplaceable and cannot be replicated. The movie's fantastic setup makes the audience exclaim in amazement. Those interested can watch their original film. Well, that's it for today's video. See you next time.